Ah, music. Whether listening to Nirvana, Alice in Chains, or Pearl Jam, you are sure to find a message, a truly relevant warning to the world about topics such as inhumanity, sexism, consumerism, even though these songs have been written over 30 years ago. And while many rock fans know of Nirvana and resonate with their message, I think there is another truly relevant band out there that is rarely talked about outside of Bulgaria. The reasons for that are obvious. First, their music was made under communist regime, where art never really left the borders of the USSR. And two, they sang in Bulgarian. However, I think that those bands are also really relevant and inspiring, and we should listen to them today. So, allow me to introduce you to New Wave in the Balkans, Episode 1, New Generation. Now, before we get to the history and the factual side of the group, I want to introduce you to a very iconic figure in the Bulgarian New Wave. In fact, the most iconic. Allow me to introduce you Dimitur Voev. Dimitur Voev was born on the 21st May, 1965, meaning he was just some 2 years older than Kurt Cobain. You'll see why we keep comparing the two in a minute. Voev was an interesting man. He had many interests concerning music and literature. He read a lot and liked to write. To this day, his texts are one of the deepest, most complex ones in Bulgarian music. One of his most beloved and quoted texts comes from the song New Generation Forever. It is not a song worshiping the band. It's an anthem, an inspiring song about all the generations to come. Voev and his bandmates, as well as us, the upcoming generations. My dad said last night, "You have no luck. Better be a snail than a poet." And while I find these words true, I would never follow their advice. I'd rather die. We are new generation, forever. And our questions go out to the whole nation, forever. On a documentary I watched recently about Voev, he had written in his diary that he was disappointed. His generation was born shortly after the Second World War, and they should have been happy, glad to be living in peace. But they weren't. Instead, they were drowning in the monotony of the gray, judging and censoring every critical thought, socialist society, and that made them angry and lost, further proving that New Generation Forever was and still is truly an anthem for those who want to change the status quo, follow their dreams, and find happiness by changing the world around them. And another, much sadder similarity to Cobain, Voev is also part of the 27 Club. And although he didn't die from drugs or suicide, many speculate his death was associated with the Chernobyl incident of 1986. You might know that even if not exposed directly to radiation, the human body can still suffer consequences of radiation. And although Chernobyl is 1,087 kilometers, 675.69 miles away from Sofia, the Bulgarian capital, it still had a huge effect there. Voev died at only 27 from a brain tumor, thought to be caused by Chernobyl. This is just a theory. However, it is not his death, but rather his life that is of interest. As a student, Voev formed his first group, Paradox, together with Christian Kostov and the drummer Kirill Manchev. Voev and Manchev managed to escape from necessary military service by entering a psychiatric clinic. Now, I don't know how they did that, even though in communism it wasn't too hard to be deemed as psychologically ill, especially if you choose to be going against the regime's rules and regulations. And Voev and Manchev probably used that to their advantage. Anyways, Christian Kostov wasn't so lucky, and he was admitted into the army, marking the end for the group. In 1984, Voev and Georg Marinov founded the jazz duo Wozzeck. Later, they were joined by Pencho Popov, and the group was renamed to Wozzeck and Churga. They mainly improvised and didn't have an ambition to perform in front of an audience. They recorded their music on audio cassettes in Pencho Popov's apartment. It was only in 1992 when the musicians decided, perhaps, that they wanted to get more serious and recorded a song in a studio. In 1985, Voev and Vasil Yurov founded the first post-punk group in Bulgaria, Kale. Their first live appearance was in 1987 at the first Sofia Rock Festival, where after the third song they were removed from the stage due to their vulgar texts, and especially, "The world is something, sweetheart, which I piss on." A year later, Kale disbanded, and Dimitur founded the group Entrance B, which soon was renamed to New Generation, the name coming from Voev's poem, New Generation Forever. As you can see, Voev was creating music for a long time and had many different projects, all of which were about rebellion, disagreeing with the regime, and advocating human compassion despite everything happening around him. He proved his beliefs not only through his music, but also through his actions, something that some creators don't really do these days. In 1991, 2 years after the end of the communist regime, Dimitur Voev advocated for the people and children in Rus who were constantly getting sick from a nearby toxic plant. This was the first protest in Bulgaria in over 40 years, as well as the first non-government organization. Voev organized one of the first rock festivals in the country after the fall of the regime, the Echo Rock Fest Save Rus, a truly revolutionary act during those times. After his death, New Generation disbanded, but the album Beyond Death was released posthumously. That, however, doesn't mean that the band was forgotten. In 1994, an anthology with Voev's poems was published, Tell the Gods I Said Hi. In 2021, another book with poems, Unread. There is a foundation in his name, organizing different events, and even a documentary made about him, which is in the cinemas all around Bulgaria right now. By the way, I saw that documentary, and I have to say that it was truly something spectacular, something interesting and deeply touching, as it involved interviews with Voev's mother, father, and brother, his bandmates, his wife and children, which, unfortunately, he never got to see grow up, as well as parts of his personal journal and letters. A truly well-done documentary about one of the most unique voices of the Bulgarian New Wave. That is definitely not all that can be said about Voev and New Generation, and that isn't even scratching the surface, if we have to be honest. There are many other things we need to cover about Voev, including the New Generation fan club, his personal and political views, the many events held around his birthday on 21st May, and many, many more. However, I think that this would be a great introduction to Voev's creativity and would hopefully spark your interest in this amazing writer and musician. Till next time!